Hey guys, fourth video of the night. It's beginning to seem like I'm actually being productive for once, but to be honest with you, by the time this is rendered, I'm probably going to be asleep. Anyway, this video is actually dedicated to U19, a new series that's part of the 6 of this revamp of these releases that Shonen Jump are doing, and this one's called U19 or Under 19. It's an interesting yet controversial series. I'm going to be covering at least the first 2 chapters this time round, and the third one's going to get released next week. If it does pick up a scanner later, which I hope it does, Gemini Box are covering it at the moment. Will they continue to do so? We will see. If it does, I will be doing this on a regular basis. If they do it in like when the volume comes out or something like that, I'll do a batch review. But for now, let's get through the first 2 chapters. So, U19 or Under 19 is actually a really interesting concept. So this was the second release of the 6. The first one being about We Can't Study, something I'm not particularly interested in. Not to say that that type of story doesn't have a place in manga. That's the wonderful thing about manga in general. There's so much variety, there's something for everybody, and I'm sure it'll do well and I'm sure it'll be fine. It's just not something for me, not something I will be reviewing. Anyway, getting back to the point. Under 19 is actually really interesting and controversial of a concept, so I'll kind of break it down. It's based in the future of 2036. The world's a lot different, a lot of a different place in Japan specifically. But to explain that, there's a trip down memory lane pretty much in this chapter, the first chapter, that 2020 where everything had to rebuild. The state of education had got so low and there's so little that was done, it pretty much meant the future of the next generation was at risk. So the adult party, who's like a political movement essentially, has come into place and has changed everything. They've set up a system that ranks students A to D, and based on that ultimately you're in a really good situation or a really bad situation. So essentially if you're A ranked, you can pretty much do most of the jobs you like, and as it goes down it gets worse. So B, you have restrictions, C, you have more restrictions, D, you ultimately just do menial jobs, manual work. So essentially it's a community based on the results you get ultimately tells you what kind of adult you can be and what things you can do. The problem with that is it creates a society of segregation, and ultimately those of higher power or higher ranking can do what they want to the lower ranking people. And we see this in this chapter. Essentially the teacher, mind my language now, is a piece of, yes, he's a piece of, literally in the first few panels he's there shaving a girl's hair because it basically becomes too long, and he abuses kids, they beat up kids. So it's kind of like the new way is now like the old way, where you could be able to hit children if they were disobeying, but literally to an extreme. So it's like an extremist, fundamentally flawed way of dealing with things. And essentially because the teacher's A ranked, he's deemed a nice human being and he can do what he wants. Now this is where the main character Kudo Eiji, or Eiji Kudo, comes into it. He's different, and he's essentially a person that doesn't follow the norm. He knits when knits frowned upon and is seen as a girly thing. He's a herbivore or a vegan when he doesn't eat meat, and that's frowned upon. So he's going against the grain, he's going against the norm. And it's a pretty crappy situation for people to be in, especially for him coming from a poor environment, coming from a world where he hasn't got all the necessary advantages that other people have, and those A-ranked elitists are treated differently. So we see him, and essentially his love interest is a girl called Kari, and they've been childhood friends for a very long time. He picked up sewing because of her, and essentially, he's planned to grow up with her and marry her. She's literally the girl next door. So they've grown up with D-rank parents who work a life based on minimalist kind of living, and they're happy to their own kind of level, I guess. So basically they're proud of what they're doing, they're happy with what they're doing, and ultimately they're living life. So it's also played in a slightly different way, because when you look at it from the adult's perspective, they've kind of bought into the idea because they were around a time where essentially employment was at its lowest and they couldn't find work. By being categorized as D's, although they're not really given much advantages, they ultimately have jobs and they can live life. So it's a weird kind of dynamic how this story is going. So that's how it starts. That's the basics of the concept, I guess. let's kind of get into it. I mean, the teacher literally beats Kudo up for not listening, and the whole time he's actually knitting a wig made of the hairs for the girl who got shaved bald. And although people see it as weird, he's actually doing a thoughtful thing, so he's actually a nice guy. With that being said, we see some interesting things from a psychological point of view. We see the idea that basically people, to get through this monstrous or this hellish type of living or stage of their lives, being teenagers, they all have their own crooks or their own support. Everyone has the different ways of dealing with it. Some people like gossip and stories, some people like sports. And for Kudo Eiji, his main support emotionally and psychologically is this girl. Now what makes matters worse for him is there's a session where they do some genetic testing, and based on that, they ultimately can give you an idea of what genetic advantages you have, disadvantages you have, and those that have better DNA have better prospects. So what happens in this situation is everyone starts getting tested, and some are good, some are bad. Then all of a sudden the love of his life gets a triple S test, which basically means she's meant to live for ages, she's got some brilliant genes and DNA, and this prompts the adult party members to want to take her away and basically kind of like give her everything that she needs, and take her away from Kudo, which essentially we don't know what his grade was. He doesn't want to find out. This creates a rift and an emotional state for Kudo because he's going to be separated from the girl he loves and he's not able to tell her. Now what's interesting about this, we also hear about kind of like a rebellion, a revolution, so to speak, and they call it garage kids. Essentially, kids were put under immense stress and they were able to unleash a hidden potential called libido, which basically gives them powers. Not everyone can do this, but essentially people of adolescent age, when put under extreme stress, release this power. Now, what's interesting is all powers are unique: flying, invulnerability, not being able to get shot, things like that. There's so many different variations, and we just have a taste of that. In this situation, especially if you look at the first chapter right at the end, we see a string or a line appear on the main character's arm, which gives a hint that he's going to get this power. Flash forward to chapter 2. Essentially, the kid's parents, Tokino's parents, want her to go as well, to give her all the advantages so that she can have a better life as well as they can. So there'll be privileges now, and she's going to go to an A-class school that's for the elitists and things like that. Maybe she's getting a free ride, I guess, a scholarship, so to speak. With all this being said, this creates that rift because he's not going to be able to see her, and she runs off to the roof and he's like, I'm happy, I can help my family, but he then confesses his love and that complicates things more. She loves him, he loves her. She wants to go peacefully, now she can't, and then bloody hell, let me have a drink. Anyway, so basically what happens is the Minister of Education literally comes on a plane and takes her away, shooting him in the process and leaving the end of the chapter with him releasing this power, which kind of looks like Kurapika's power from Hunter x Hunter with the chain, and it's like the strings to that bind situation, and basically he doesn't want to let her go. We don't know what his powers are, we are left with that cliffhanger, but there's so many theories. Ultimately, people believe he's going to have a connection to those people he hits with that spike string type of thing, and it's going to be interesting seeing what happens moving forward. That being said, it's new. Most like all these other releases that come out new, we don't know what's going to happen with them. We don't know how long they're going to last. Are they even going to continue? What I will be doing is reviewing those that I find interesting. If they continue, they're released. If they get scanlated, I will review them regular. Whenever they come out, I will review them if it's like a bunch thing on a volume. Also, on the back of that, I will not be having personalized intros or logos for these up until they get 50 plus and there's a chance of them really progressing, because I've been doing that, I've been trying, and you know what it's like, people, they get cancelled and I'm left disappointed. With that being said, I will do a video on Demon's Plan ending and Amalgam of Distortion. I did do one, but I'm going to redo it and I'll probably have that in the next couple of days. I'm releasing this, I'm going to render it. If I'm awake still when this fully renders, I will upload it. If not, it'll be Wednesday. So whenever you see this, thanks for checking it out. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you next time. Peace.